Asclepius was an ancient Greek god and hero of medicine that was widely known for his healing capabilities. It was even believed that Asclepius could bring to life people that have already died. Asclepius bridged the gap between culture and nature by uniting the material world of the senses with the abstract world of the divine mind. He was prominently worshipped through ancient Greece, whilst the most known place of worship was the famous city known as Epidaurus. The city represented the center of healing for the ancient world and was a site of athletic, dramatic, and musical games held in Asclepius' honor every 4 years. Asclepius was frequently represented standing, dressed in a long cloak, with bare breast. His usual attribute was a staff with a serpent coiled around it. This staff is known as the symbol of medicine. Him sometimes accompanied by Hygeia, and has a dog at his feet. As these animals were sacred at some of the gods' sanctuaries, Asclepius was also associated with 3 types of trees: the cypress, olive, and pine tree. Before we continue, consider liking and subscribing if you want more content like this. When it comes to etymology, the origin of his name is a subject of debate and is thus unknown. When it comes to family, according to Greek mythology, Asclepius was the son of Apollo and Coronis, while some say that it was Apollo alone that gave birth to him. Roberto Calasso, in the Marriage of Cadmus and Harmony, gives us the story of Asclepius' birth. Coronis was pregnant by Apollo when she found herself attracted to a stranger. He came from Arcadia and his name was Ichthys. A white crow watched over her. Apollo had told the bird to guard the woman he loved, so that no one might violate her purity. The crow saw Coronis give herself to Ichthys, so off it flew to Delphi and its master to tell the tale. It said it had discovered Coronis' secret doings. In his fury, Apollo threw down his plectrum. His laurel crown fell in the dust. Looking at the crow, his eyes were full of hatred, and the creature's feathers turned black as pitch. Then Apollo asked his sister Artemis to go and kill Coronis in Laceria. Artemis' arrow pierced the faithless woman's breast. Before dying, Coronis whispered to the god that he had killed his own son too, at which Apollo tried to save her, in vain. His medical skills were not up to it, but when the woman's sweet-smelling body was stretched on a pyre high as a wall, the flames parted before the god's grasping hand, and from the dead mother's belly, safe and sound, he pulled out Asclepius, the healer." End quote. Some say that it was Hermes who saved the child, but more about his hermetic qualities later in the video. According to Delphian tradition, Asclepius was born in the temple of Apollo, with Lachesis acting as a midwife and Apollo relieving the pains of Coronis. Apollo named the child after Coronis' nickname, Agile, while the Phoenician tradition claims that Asclepius was born of Apollo without any woman involved. Apollo named the rescued baby Asclepius and reared him for a while and taught him many things about medicine, as Apollo also possessed the knowledge of healing. However, Asclepius had his formal education under the centaur Chiron, who instructed him in the art of medicine. Asclepius represented the healing aspect of medical arts and had several children. Most known children are Hygeia, the goddess of cleanliness, Iaso, the goddess of recuperation from illness, Akeso, the goddess of the healing process, Agile, the goddess of good health, and Panacea, the goddess of universal remedy. When it comes to mythology, Asclepius possessed an innate sensibility that would develop into a knowledge of human suffering, into a borderland between life and death, represented by his symbolic animals, the serpent, and the dog that stood for the natural, Chthonian, and emotional aspects of the human being. After getting his medical education from Chiron, Asclepius, in return for his act of kindness towards a snake, received secret knowledge from her. He then bore a rod coiled with a snake, which became associated with healing, which you can see on many hospitals and apothecaries. Other version states that when Asclepius was commanded to restore the life of Glaucus, he was confined in a secret prison. While pondering on what he should do, a snake crept near his staff. Lost in his thoughts, Asclepius unknowingly killed it by hitting it with his staff. Later, another snake came there with a herb in its mouth and placed it on the head of the dead snake, which soon came back to life. Seeing this, Asclepius used the same herb which brought Glaucus back. Here we can see the archetypal chthonic serpent that carries the knowledge from the depths of divine knowledge. Did you know that a species of non-venomous pan-Mediterranean serpents, the Asclepian snake, is named after the god? On the other hand, Homer tells us that Hermes' caduceus was acquired by Hermes from Apollo in exchange for his tortoise lyre. Later the caduceus changed hands again from Hermes to Apollos' son, Asclepius. Jeanette Paris notes that the passing of the wand from Hermes to Asclepius signified the bridging between the ancient ways of healing through magic, represented by Hermes, to the new scientific attitude and consequently the secularization of medicine, represented by Asclepius. At some point it was believed that Asclepius was among those who took part in the Caledonian boar hunt. Asclepian healing practice was very different from that of his formidable father. The healing granted by Apollo, the averter of evil, the purger and purifier, was swift, coming from afar, abstract, detached, and as sudden as lightning bolt, since he was a god of healing and a god of punishment. Apollo healed the plagues he sent. The followers of the path of Asclepius, however, relied heavily on ritual, honored the right time and place, and always paid homage to the earth goddess. Asclepius walked the earth with a staff in his hand, dedicating his time to praxis kai logos, which in translation means treating with hands and by speaking magic words. Asclepius' knowledge surpassed his father Apollo and Chiron, giving him extraordinary capabilities to resurrect the dying and those already dead. He once started bringing back to life the dead people like Tyndarus, Capaneus, Glaucus, Lycurgus, and others. It was believed that he even brought Hippolytus back from the dead on Artemis' request and accepted gold for it. Hades got angry with Asclepius that stole his subjects from him and pledged his case to Zeus. This angered Zeus, as he claimed that Asclepius was toying with the balance of the life and death cycle, and thus Asclepius got struck down with a thunderbolt from the almighty god. After Asclepius' death, Zeus placed his body among the stars as the constellation Ophiuchus, only to later be resurrected upon Apollo's request and given a place on Olympus. Did you know that Ophiuchus was understood as the fetus attached to the umbilical cord? After Medusa was killed, her blood was split between Athena and Asclepius. It was believed that the blood from her right vein cured and from the left killed. Any healing work needs a careful and loving union of opposites. Both the name Medusa and the word medicine come from the same Greek root word med, which means to devise, to use powerful means, to consider, measure, estimate, and judge. It was Apollo who taught us the importance of moderation in everything at his Delphic oracle, claiming that with excess any remedy could turn into poison. Asclepius was also the patron god and reputed ancestor of the Asclepiads, the ancient guild of doctors. The therapeutes of Asclepius were a recognized and designated association in antiquity that included the physicians, their attendants, and support staff in the larger temples of Asclepius. These healing temples were known as Asclepions. Examples of famous therapeutes of Asclepius include Hippocrates, Apollonius of Tyana, Aelius Aristides, and Galen. At Epidaurus, there was the columned abato, in which patients, after having gone through several purification rituals, slept overnight and awaited dreams where the god would appear and offer cures and remedies. The cures would then later be self-administered or carried out by priests. Thankful patients often left votive offerings at the site, sometimes depicting the body part which had been cured. Here we need to say that for Greeks, dreams were not figments of imagination, but something that really happened. They were perceived as stimulating the natural soothsaying of the psyche. Symptoms were always viewed as external expressions of the deeper underlying reality of the psyche. This means that the synchronicity between body and mind, the external and the internal world, is what formed every symptom. While incubating, the sick person slept in the abaton, lying on a kline, from which our present word clinic is obtained. The abaton was, as Mayer describes, a place not to be entered unbidden. It was the holiest part of the temple. Scholars claim that it was deemed to be entered only by those who were invited or called to do so. The ritual of incubation was an initiation into a mystery, a passage to the higher dimensions of being. Each case was treated as different and unique, because the waking have one world and a common one, but when asleep, everyone turns away from it into their own world, as Heraclitus wrote in the 89th fragment. Asclepius is, in fact, one of the notable characters of Corpus Hermeticum, in which he makes an impression as a devoted follower and disciple of Hermes thought Trismegistus. Hermes advises Asclepius to devote himself to the world rather than escape it by saying to him in Book 9 that sense and understanding both flow together in man, as they are entwined with each other. It is neither possible to understand without sense, nor to sense without understanding." End quote. Higher understanding must be rooted in the body. This is the heart of Hermeticism. To conclude this video, Asclepius has come and gone from the world in a dramatic way, balancing between death and life. He was exposed to the ultimate realities of existence. As a figure that integrated opposites, both God and human, Asclepius embodies further dualities. For example, he was often depicted both as a boy and as a mature man. He was born amidst fire and died getting struck by a lightning bolt. But his life on earth thrilled around sacred groves and springs, and was very earthy in nature. This is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon link down below. Thanks for rebuilding Olympus.